No matter what you do, Monday morning will always come. The weekend chill and partying will be over once again and you can get back to waking up early to go to work or school. This is when it runs through your mind to turn over, stop the alarm and just leave the whole freaking thing. Because who would want to work on a Monday morning? At the same time, no matter how bad or boring you think your job is, there's always worse. There are more special jobs as well. Hi, I'm Mark from ListHive and today I brought you the 10 weirdest jobs from around the world. You know the feeling when you're talking to somebody who's about to tell you something and that deadly smell from their mouth starts to hit you? And then think about that there are people who get their money for smelling other people's mouth. Wait, what? But that's disgusting, though it's a real profession. Don't just think that they randomly stop you on the street to get a sniff of your breath. These people work for businesses manufacturing gum, toothpaste and other similar things. They are the ones who test how effective a given product is. Just imagine this job. You go to work each morning and take a sample. Okay, this stinks really bad. You give them 2 gums, 10 minutes pass and you take another smell sample. Disgusting, right? And this goes on every day. Apologizing is one of the most difficult things in the world for most people, especially at a young age. I'm not talking about that situation when you still think you're right but you apologize because you want to make up with somebody, but when you really know you made a mistake. The Japanese have solved this problem. In Japan, there are professional apologizers who you can hire to go to somebody and beg for forgiveness in your name. I mean, the whole point is that you admit that you made a mistake face to face, but it seems like they set aside from this little detail in Japan. You can even make decent money with this job because people who live there would rather pay a large amount to somebody just so their pride wouldn't get hurt that bad. Flight tickets might be expensive, but once the business gets going, it's worth it. Traveling is a great thing. You see new sceneries, you get to know new cultures, plus you can taste a lot of local foods. Actually, it doesn't have a bad side, the only thing is that it can be pretty expensive. Of course, you can spare a few pennies here and there and you can come out relatively cheap, though traveling is always an investment, which I think is worth it. One way you can make a trip cheaper is if you choose to hitchhike instead of the usual bus, train, plane trio. It might be slower, but you can get to know even more people and it is definitely more adventurous. And then there's Indonesia, where people look at hitchhiking as more of a job than something for traveling. Yes, you heard it right, their job is to hitchhike. This is because there's a law in power in Indonesia which states that in the streets there are certain lanes on which only cars with at least 3 people can go. So while a lot of people sit alone in a traffic jam in the inner lanes, others pay a few hitchhikers to get in the car and use the faster ones. It's not bad tactics after all. I take it that you've heard the story of the Titanic. The young DiCaprio was the one who introduced this catastrophe to the world in 1997. But did you know that this accident had another outcome besides the movie? Because a new profession was born after the Titanic had sunk in 1912. 1 year later, they have established the International Ice Patrol, which is run by the Coast Guard of the United States. Their duty is to map icebergs and ensure secure paths for ships. Sometimes this only means telling them what direction to go, but sometimes they have to use iceberg moving ships. If they cannot ensure safe paths for ships with a simple guiding, then the iceberg moving team goes out and sends those naughty icebergs away. Yep, they can't just float there freezing in the middle of the pathway. Funerals are not the happiest occasions in the world. Usually a bunch of people get together to pay their respects to the departed for one last time. At the same time, there are people who make a business out of it. Namely, there are people who make a living as professional mourners. What does that even mean? It usually means that they put on their black suits and go to the funeral, put on a sad face, offer emotional support to the relatives and then go home after the ceremony. I don't know about you, but I was really surprised to hear that this is an actual thing. In England, you can hire these people for about 30 to 120 US dollars for a funeral. Crazy, right? Now let's get to a topic that's way happier and cooler. And what's cooler than surfing? Alright, it's a question of taste, but let's face it, riding the waves is not such a bad thing. Of course, pros are either competing or teaching others. Though there's one group of people who really know how to surf that puts a twist to it. There are people who teach dogs how to surf. Just think about it. You go down to the beach, sunshine, breeze, great waves, and dogs. I don't think these people hate Monday mornings that much. Although I'm curious how they teach dogs. How do they motivate them to at least stay on the board and not jump into the water? Not to mention riding the waves right. Would you like to lay in bed all day? Do you like meeting new people? Do you like to hug? Then this job was made for you. People have found that we don't hug enough, though we have a huge need for it. And this is how the professional cuddler job was born. Yes, there are people who make a living of hugging others. Not just on the streets, but actually cuddling in bed. Semi-darkness, calming music, cuddling. Although it can be weird with a stranger. Allegedly, this profession is based on some serious research and you can get past it pretty fast. Samantha Hess from Portland did mention a negative aspect in her job, and that is emotional bonding. It seems like she has to work on separating her emotions from her job. Weddings are usually happy occasions. Two families come together to form one around the happy couple. A wedding has many protagonists, starting with the couple, but I could also mention the wedding planner if there was one, and also the bridesmaids. They are essential in a bride's life, they guide and support her and complete all of her wishes. But what if you couldn't choose any of your friends to be your bridesmaids? Or they are not enough and you want to have more? In today's world, it's not a problem because you can hire people to be your bridesmaids. It does have a price though, at least in the USA it's not a cheap thing. Girls ask for about $300 to $2,000 for a wedding per person. A wedding is never cheap, but a few rented bridesmaids can really add to your bill. If you've been a single girl for a long time, this service was made for you. Especially if at family gatherings you keep getting the same question. When will you bring a man home already? They can also help you if you have really nice date plans but you have no one to go with. In Japan they have invented man renting. I'm not really sure how this works, whether you can book a man on a web shop for a few hours or there's a real store, but it sure does sound weird. However, in exchange for some money, you can spend a few nice hours in someone's company who definitely wants to make sure you're having a nice time. I mean, he wouldn't want you to give a bad review. It's also not a problem if you take him to a family dinner to introduce him. You can always play the breakup card. Whether you believe it or not, there's a place in the world where the government can create jobs. Just not exactly the way you would think. In Iran, they passed the law as a result of fighting against smog, which states that on certain days only cars with a certain registration number can get about in the city. This is all nice, but locals are more cunning than just to accept this. This is how the registration number covering profession was born. All these people do is walk or run behind cars with bad numbers to cover those up which you couldn't exactly drive. This way, cameras cannot identify them and they can't give you a ticket. I'm not sure what the strategy is with the parking cars, because you can't exactly fool a policeman who's walking by this easily. They might always park in an underground car park, or do they use a different registration number for parking? I'm waiting for the tips in the comment section. That's it for today. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to ListHive.